The Chargers may have lost their second preseason game, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Justin Herbert is back, baby.
And the Vikings may have won their second game in a row in the preseason. And there's not much light at the end of the tunnel, maybe. Nah, just kidding. It's going pretty good for the Vikings. We'll touch on them
Yeah.
today.
Exciting time. Season is only a few weeks away. I can't wait. I know the same for you,
Oh,
Brandon.
yeah.
But if you're with us, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to another episode of the BuiBros Football Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Quinn Bowie, and I cheer for the LA Chargers. And across from me, my brother Brandon.
And I cheer for your Minnesota Vikings. Woohoo!
Yes, yes, yes. And, getting right into it, the Chargers. Well, we lost to the Rams, the Battle of LA. 13-9. Offense again, there are a few more bright spots with the offense, but starting at the quarterback position, not really much there. There seemed to be some movement, some positive signs with Easton Stick, and then he had the interception, and then even worse situation. You fumble pretty much right there at the goal line, and the Rams take over. So articles are saying, I agree with it, that he may have played himself out of the QB2 conversation, maybe even off the team. Luis Perez, the darling of preseason one, well, it seemed to come back down to earth there as well. But there were bright spots. Rookie running back making his debut in Kimani Vidal. He had 11 carries, 49 yards, 4.5 average, and he showed that vision, that burst there. Why they drafted him. Greg Roman today was talking that they're not surprised, but he can continue to build off of it, and I'm sure he's going to. That running back room is interesting. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and now Kimani Vidal. What does that mean for the rest of the group? Jarrett Patterson, he had some success last year as an undrafted rookie. And then, you look at Isaiah Spiller, 2 carries for 7 yards. He was drafted again with the old regime. It looks like it's the 3-man running back committee right now, potentially with a fullback in there. Then we get to the receiving end. Simi Fehoko showed some reason for them to keep him on the team. Harbaugh and Greg Roman were asked today, or the last couple of days, how many receivers they expect to keep on the roster, and 7 is not out of the realm of possibilities with the way that these wide receivers are playing. Quentin Johnston had a nice game, only the 1 catch, but he did draw an illegal contact, and he was getting separation. He was open for a big play. Easton Stick overthrew him. You get to the defensive side of the ball, there's some bright spots, but I want to highlight one player, cornerback, who now wears 33, Derwin James' old number, Dean Leonard. Dean Leonard is a Canadian guy right there. Dean Leonard specifically played at the University of Calgary, and he showed signs of improvement last year. He was part of the unit that really helped blanket Tyreek in that high-powered offense a couple of games ago. He's making strides in Jesse Minter's defense, and I think he's played himself into potentially a starting player in the secondary. Very exciting in that regard. He came up with an interception in the red zone, had a couple more pass defenses. He was around the ball quite a bit. That's great to hear. But yeah, pretty exciting when it comes to where the team is going now to get healthy, the players back. Talked about it earlier, or I mentioned it earlier. Justin Herbert back in practice, and Harbaugh was asked, well, what was that feeling like? How was it getting Justin back? And, I started hearing sounded like music.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounded like angels singing. When Herbert came back in onto the practice field, and my goodness, what a way to describe the situation. We are all excited with the way the quarterback position has been playing in the preseason. We need Justin Herbert back.
Yes.
Season's a few weeks away, so let him continue to rehab and heal. Make sure he's fully healthy, ready to go for the Raiders in week 1. I'm sure they will do that. Ben Herbert, Jim Harbaugh. But in other news, big article coming out of the Ringer titled Jim Harbaugh's been born again in LA, but can he save the Chargers? Interesting stuff going on here. It's ultimately talking about, that force going against an immovable object in Harbaugh. And I want to highlight something about this. It's a very interesting article, but talk about like who Harbaugh is as a person, these Harbaughisms. We talk about these Harbaughisms all the time, and it's so fun to kind of see the personality of a head coach like him. Right. At a bachelor party a decade ago, he won a game of laser tag by exclusively targeting a 10-year-old child. The competitive nature. He is going to win no matter what the circumstances are. He recently confirmed a tall tale about how he gets into cold tubs fully dressed, including in his signature khaki pants. He infamously refused to eat chicken because they are nervous birds. But then he reversed course in 2020 and got a chicken coop at a Tractor Supply in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Fell in love with the animals because he ultimately said that he came to respect the chickens for the production that they have. Harbaugh is a different animal. He is bringing everybody on board this wild train ride, and I've been saying the whole time I'm excited.
Yeah, or he's just a weird guy, man.
Heck yeah, bring the personality. People relate to that. And if he brings results, you can be as wild, outrageous as you can.
Well, that's exactly it. All of a sudden, in 4 years, you guys are doing amazing. It's like, oh, this guy's he's an eccentric character. Or in like 2 years, you guys are doing not great. And it's like, well, what did we expect? This guy's weird. Players don't relate to that. All of a sudden, that's what's going to happen.
Oh, gosh. It would be the most Charger thing ever that you bring in one of the most winningest head coaches in NFL, in college football, the ability to turn programs around, get everybody, personnel, upper management, fans bought into the idea, wins everywhere, turn into a winning program. But at the Chargers, just can't do it. No chance that happens. Heck no. No. Knock on wood there.
Yeah.
But it is going to be that case. His contract, I believe, 5 years. And so once we get a few years down the road, there is that saying that Harbaugh made famous in his national championship run last year, in that, who's got it better than us? But again, against the immovable object in the Chargers, where in this article, again, the Ringer article states that the Chargers for the past 2 decades have had this unofficial slogan of, who's got it worse than us? And it is going to be that tale, of the story of two tales, two paths here. Where is Harbaugh going to lead the Chargers? And hopefully he continues the trend of winning.
Yes, hopefully. Well, I saw some great Chargers news. I saw awesome stats coming out of Joe Alt.
Yes.
He's one of the best tackles during the preseason, if not the best. I can't remember exactly.
Yes, the quote I remember is that he was a man amongst boys out there, where he's standing, I believe 6'8", close to 6'9".
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Big dude. And he's out there, and I guess the transition to the right tackle position, it's as if he had been playing that for the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great news for Herbert coming back,
Great
ready
news.
to go. Great news for that running game, which already seeing signs with a rookie running
Well,
back.
and I also saw a stat that you guys are leading the league in the preseason for yards before contact at like 2.6 yards or something. Whereas last year, you guys were 28th at zero point 0.9 yards, something like that.
The
Um,
offensive
and this is
line,
without any starting running backs, without your top
yes.
two guys, right? Because I don't believe they played in the preseason.
Nope, they haven't played in the
So
preseason yet.
without the two guys that, and I know like the pre-contact could be related to an O line stat rather than a running back, but
Right.
still a better running back could extend that a little bit longer too. So pretty impressive, very impressive.
Yeah,
2.6
no,
yards
no, this is exciting. This
pre-contact.
is
Whew.
huge. That
Yeah,
is that, the offensive line, that is ultimately, beside the quarterback, that's what Harbaugh and Greg Roman want to build this team
yeah,
around, right? And it looks like things are starting to come together, and it's very exciting. It's a different way of offensive football for the Chargers
yeah.
that they've had. It's been Justin Herbert show, throwing the ball all the time, which us as fans love it, love it. Like, please, absolutely don't take that away. And I don't think Greg Roman or Jim Harbaugh would even think of taking that away. But to actually have a solid offensive line and a strong running game to support Herbert, that has not happened. That hasn't really happened with even Philip Rivers.
Yeah.
There were a couple seasons there where Melvin Gordon did all right, and of course earlier on with LaDainian Tomlinson, there was that support, but for the most part, offensive line never really got behind Philip Rivers. Didn't have that strong of a running game for most of his career, I'd say. And here we are,
Here we
balanced
are.
offense, solid defense, and with the way that we see the defense playing, as we've stated, this is exciting. This is exciting, and to have the Raiders as the Week 1 opponent, I have to hold myself back a bit and say like, the faders, and talk shit because, well, now we know that Gardner Minshew is going to be the starting quarterback in Week 1. We like Gardner Minshew, right? He
Totally.
maybe new age Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the full beard, but he's got that stash. He's got the shoe, the big shoe,
Yeah.
as some of the guys say. But we have to realize. I was reading about this, that like two of the last few games that we've played them, they've handed us embarrassing losses. That Week 18 game against them in 2022,
I remember.
where Justin Herbert brought us back from the dead. It was an insane fourth down after fourth down. It was like such high stakes levels of emotion. That game was a wild roller coaster. We get to overtime, and then there was that whole controversial timeout where if both teams had just tied, they both make the postseason.
Yeah.
Fumble by Brandon Staley. In many regards, we won't even blame it on that whole timeout situation. But Justin Herbert, what a performance! And then, of course, the game that shall not be named last year. Yeah, I don't know what the score was, but again, it was like another embarrassing, not like very embarrassing. Anyway, so we have to take them seriously. They are a division rival, and Jim Harbaugh has a test to pass. Gardner Minshew ain't no slouch, and when you're throwing to a guy like Devontae Adams out there, when you have a defense led by Max Crosby and that unit, things can happen, and we need to be ready to go. Good things, guys are getting healthy. In Harbaugh, we trust. But to transition, a little fun article that I was reading. So it's official. The Chargers are releasing Max Duggan, who was one of our draft picks last year, 7th round draft pick. It was an odd draft pick, but it was the quarterback who played with TCU through to Quentin Johnston, and Darius Davis, who we also drafted. We drafted 3 of that offensive unit last year. We are now releasing him. And the title is Chargers Releasing Max Duggan, Made Worse by Looking Back at Who LA Passed On. And I'll give you a hint. There's another connection between the Chargers and Vikings, even if that connection is made up by us. But it's ultimately saying, hey, we drafted him in the 7th round. Guess who was undrafted?
It was Ivan Pace Jr.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Ivan Pace Jr. We could have drafted Ivan Pace Jr., guys.
Who's a stud.
Instead
Really?
of Max Duggan.
Yeah.
Like, what a different world we would have lived in if we decided to be the team to make Ivan Pace Jr. not an undrafted rookie free agent.
Yeah, you'd be feeling pretty good. That guy's a stud.
But the team who did, before we reveal that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like what you're listening to, like the video, really helps us out. Lets us know you love talking football, Chargers, Vikings, each and every day like we do. And hit the notification bell. Back to it. That team who drafted Ivan Pace, signed Ivan Pace Jr., the Minnesota Vikings. What's happening this week, Minnesota Vikings?
What's happening this week? Okay, here's what's happening. Is I went back, as a little study session for this video to look back at the week and what happened with the Vikings. And what happened is that I saw right away, first thing I see is that Lewis Cine had a great game. He had a great game. We just talked about last week. Maybe he's a candidate to be cut. Maybe something. Maybe whatever. Right? He might not make the team. Then he comes out and has a great game, and everyone's pretty happy with it. Like, this was definitely his best game as a Viking, but which isn't
huge
very
Quasi
many.
game there.
What's that?
Yeah, a huge Quasi game.
Huge Quasi game. Okay, a sack, a monster hit, an interception. He did really, really well. It was really fun to see. Really happy for him. And then the second thing I see is it is believed that Lewis Cine will he will be looked at as a conditional late round draft pick trade value.
Great candidate.
And it's like, oh, okay. Because he could be like, I guess who cares about his 7th? You know what I mean? This guy is our first round pick 2 years ago, The only thing is that he is probably pretty expensive because he's a first round pick.
Right.
He's probably pretty expensive. Is he even going to see the field? No matter how well he does now, there's still guys above him that are doing well as well. So do we need to have a 5th safety or a 4th safety on our team? Just because he was a first round pick? I don't know. It's kind of sad. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he's just getting his footing because he freaking broke his leg in a very nasty way in one of our games in his rookie year. When he was just a special teams guy, which isn't uncommon, right? Like, we had 2 great safeties already. You know what I mean? So, anyways. And now he's kind of finally getting his groove on, possibly. And then we get to trade him, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Those
articles always come up. They want to build smoke, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you said, you don't want a 7th round pick for your first round pick. Like, what does that do?
Yeah.
I don't think the Vikings would take that. It's interesting, and maybe not everybody always talks about versatility, but something that the Chargers defensive coach coordinator was saying, Jesse Minter was saying, is that he really values versatility, and they coach versatility. So wanting players to move around and be in different positions. And we have a 3rd round player, JT Woods, that we drafted a couple years ago. That we've now moved to corner, and he just had a pretty solid outing against the Rams over the weekend. So maybe having that versatility that you mentioned, Lewis Cine, do you need a 4th, 5th safety? Well, you know what you do need? some corners right now. And he's got the coverage skills. So is there a way that you could potentially be creative and just teach him that role, coach him in that role? Can such a terrible person like Brian Flores coach a player to be in a different role? Potentially. Don't ask Tua, but
Okay, here's what happened. Okay, now that you brought it up, Coach Flores is just a run-of-the-mill hard ass. You know what I mean? Tua's kind of just being a big bitch.
Yeah.
You don't like how it works. Get out of the league, man. This is a big boys league.
Big boys.
But apparently, Nick Saban is notoriously harsh on players, and Tua made it through him, and then gets to Brian Flores.
Right.
And it's so unbearable. And then Brian Flores came out today, and I would say he apologized, but I can't because he didn't. He said, yeah, I heard what he said. Yeah, it wasn't very positive for me to hear that kind of those things. And I have learned from my experience. Sure, I'd like to talk to Tua about this, but I have these guys here that I'm worrying about right now. I'm focused on this season. And He could have said, yeah, and I'm sorry for what I said and my actions. But instead he said,
sorry.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I said that stuff. Do I feel good about it? No. You want me to apologize? What? No, I'm thinking about our season right now. That's what he said. And I don't know. Maybe that's why he's not getting head coaching jobs anywhere because of that. Or maybe it's because he came out and said that he was asked to tank. And he's suing the league.
Right.
Who knows? But maybe he'll stay our defensive coordinator. That's the selfish answer. Because it was pretty fun last year. We have high hopes again this year. But yeah, he seems like a Mike Zimmer type. And Zimmer was a good head coach, and that hard style was needed when he was hired because I think like 2013, 2014, because our team was a shithead. Like our team was filled with shitheads, and we needed to be, our culture needed a big shock. And it got shocked, and then it kind of got to the end. It was like, okay, what the hell, coach? Why are you still an asshole? Yeah. So they let him go. Excuse me. And now he's just a defensive coordinator.
He is a defensive coordinator that I'd like to touch base on in a little bit.
But it's just, maybe that's the role. You need the defensive coordinator. And Kevin O'Connell's not going to allow Brian Flores to just be talking to the team like that when the culture that he wants to build doesn't involve any of that, right? He was brought in specifically to end the culture like that. So anyways, that's a lot. That's a lot of speculation. There's we'll probably never know. Well, it's just he didn't deny it. So it seems like Tua's kind of telling the truth. But in that case, that sucks. You don't want to go to work and be yelled at like that constantly.
No.
And so I'm happy for him that he's found a good match. Which is great.
Yeah.
Okay. So more talking about the game. The Vikings won, as I mentioned before. I know that you didn't say the same thing about your team, but that's okay. We also saw good things from our kicker, Will Reichard.
Oh my goodness, kickers.
We drafted him in the 6th round this year, and he has looked good. There's no nerves. It's not like, oh shit, this guy's going to miss. And that could go away pretty quick, but it's not there yet. So that's really exciting. Excuse me. Who else looked good? Jaron Hall. Before you
go into that, just like from a rookie, like from a kicker perspective, I feel like the way kickers in the preseason, like this performance, I think is quite translatable into the regular season.
Yeah.
We look at the offense, defense. Oftentimes the ones aren't out there, and so you can't get a full picture. But when you have guys rushing you on special teams, the variance between the skilled special teams players in that very small. And so you actually get real game experience. You get rushed, and there's pressure. You got to make it. You're in situations where it's still 50 plus yards.
Yeah.
It's the whole rigmarole. And so the fact that he's not unfazed, I think that's going to be great, and that bodes well for the regular season.
Yeah, it's really cool. It just is cool we drafted a kicker, so he's got to be a pretty good one of this year's
Right.
rookie class,
Yeah.
or at least he's got to be scouted as one of those good players. So that's really exciting, and I'm just excited to see him kick in regular season games, and I'm excited to see him kick a game winner for us. I'm excited to see the team get really excited, like they did in the first game. He kicked a game winner, and they got really excited. It's fun.
Brandon, like we cannot go through any more of these game winners, okay? These one
One
score
scores, yeah,
last minute potential heartbreaks.
yeah.
You can't rely on him. I know you drafted him, you want to see him out there, but we need to be winning handedly.
Yeah, but it's
Okay?
gonna happen. It's gonna
It's
happen.
yeah, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. That's just how it goes. Who else looked good? Jaron Hall looked really good. Third round pick from last year. Was a bit when he had to play last year when he was kind of thrown in there. He looked pretty good, and I think we're gonna get to see him a lot more this next game, which is quite fun.
He had the longest touchdown pass in the preseason.
Maybe it was long. It was
It was like 76
74
yards.
yards. Yeah, something. It was
74.
sweet. And it was a nice
but I'm
throw.
pretty sure he had. Sorry.
I say it was
Oh,
a
yeah.
nice throw on the run. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, longest pass in the preseason.
Um, yeah, I'm good for him. It was really, really nice. Like the throw wasn't that far, right? Like the guy ran a
Right.
lot after, but it was a really good throw. Like just right over the defender, only like right where the receiver could catch it on the run. It was really nice. So I hope that he like it's kind of weird right now because we've got I guess we don't have to keep JJ McCarthy as part of the 53 because he's on IR, right? I don't know exactly, right?
Yeah, interesting.
So
Interesting.
um and then
So maybe you keep Jaron Hall.
Darnold, and then Mullins as the backup. So Darnold, Mullins, and then I guess we keep Jaron Hall as the third quarterback. That makes sense, actually. But when JJ McCarthy gets back, I wonder if we just boot Mullins or something like that,
It
right?
probably would. I mean, depending on Jaron Hall's development,
Well, and
it
JJ could be the backup too, right? Like,
100%. But like Mullins is going to be, he's an older quarterback now, and if you've got a younger, cheaper guy who can do the same type of
yeah,
job that you drafted, there's a lot of value in that, and so yeah, I could see Mullins being the next one gone.
yeah. um, and that's really it. So the game showed that the defense was quite competitive, which
Yeah.
is very nice to see. And I
Yeah.
know that it's only preseason, but eh. Um,
Well, one
eh.
highlight, like I want to bring this up, Brandon. We haven't talked about this sweet signing.
Wait, wait,
One
wait,
of the
wait, wait!
top-
I'm not there yet.
Am I stealing
Okay,
your
the Vikings had
thunder?
a sweet signing. Okay, 1 million. Sorry, 1 year, 7 million guaranteed. Stephon Gilmore. He's kind of washed.
Whoa.
I watched JJ cook him in the game that we had the largest comeback in NFL history against the Colts a couple years ago. Justin Jefferson, sorry, Jets, had
Right.
a wild route, my favorite route I've ever seen. If you watch it again, it would be your favorite route that you've ever seen. And so I wonder what they talk about. They must have talked about it because that was a national play. Like that was a play that everybody saw, especially for such a high profile game once it was finished. But Stephon Gilmore, yeah, so it's possible that he's just a depth pickup. It is quite possible because Byron Murphy Jr. and then Shaq Griffin, right?
Right.
He's coming back from a hamstring, but he's been practicing again. So looks like that's 1 and 2, and maybe Stephon Gilmore fits in with those guys.
Well, you got to get somebody in the slot as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's usually three corners out there, and how like how they position them, could vary game to game.
Yeah, I think
But I think it's a good signing, and I think he's going to be out there. It's
Oh, yeah.
they paid a good amount of money
Yeah.
1 year. They're trying to squeeze as much Stephon Gilmore as there may be left out.
He's also going to be a great locker room presence, I think, the vet
100%.
presence, and just to be able to kind of teach and coach up the young players from a player is something that guys respect. So that's really nice.
That's awesome. Great to see the Vikings sign someone like Gilmore. Compete in that NFC North, where it looks like there's a lot of passing attacks going on, potentially with Caleb Williams too. We've seen him in now 2 games.
He looks good, man.
Yeah, he looks good. That sucks for you in the NFC North. I'm so sorry.
He looks so good.
Lions good, Packers good, Vikings. JJ McCarthy is going to be the best out of all of them. The Bears are going to rue the day that they passed up on JJ McCarthy. Jordan Love.
I just want to say another fun thing. Highest graded NFL preseason week 2. So I think this is just for the week. I don't think this is for both weeks. Taki Taimani, if that's how I'm saying it right. I think that is how you say it. Vikings rookie, drafted this year. 91.5. He's the number 1 defensive rookie. Oh, is this? This isn't just defense. Oh, highest graded rookie. And then we also have number 10 as well, Dwight McLaughlin. And so our rookies are doing pretty good. And it's kind of nice, it seems more, and these are some later picks. Like, I think Dwight was a 7th round pick. No, he wasn't. That's excuse me. Oh, geez. What am I talking about? We got a 3rd guy. He's not highly rated on PFF, but the fans are really loving it. Levi Drake Rodriguez, sorry. He had a mic'd up session in week 1, and he just is like very vocal, very fun, and he's like very violent when he plays, defensive tackle. He's just like vicious, it looks, but then he's like super friendly, but he's just talks shit, and he's like, it's really, really fun. And he was their 7th round pick, actually. And when I watched him play and like how good he could be, possibly carving out a decent role in our defense, it made me think actually of Ivan Pace from last year. A really late flyer that you take on a guy that you really like. Really good. So there's the defense. A lot of highlights on the defense, which is surprising because our corner depth is not great. So,
and it's surprising because you have such a terrible person coaching your team.
Oh, he's horrible. The guy is possibly the worst.
Possibly.
Yeah. Oh, right here it says, if you woke up every morning and I told you that you suck at what you did and that you don't belong, that you shouldn't be here, that you haven't earned this. Shit. And then someone tells you that you're the best.
Talk about in there, it's like, you shouldn't be the one here. And it was almost because it had come out and it had been reported that Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert over.
Yeah, Chargers, man. That is true. I think a lot of guys may have wanted him.
Yeah, and it's also coming like Washington Commanders. They're like, we should have drafted him instead of Chase Young. Yeah, I know. We got him. We got one of the best quarterbacks on the planet. That's what they keep saying on the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman. We have one of the best quarterbacks on the planet. This is not a dig at anybody else. Like, it's just when you have one of the best quarterbacks on the planet, you can't compete with them, which is fantastic. And speaking of quarterbacks, you know what quarterbacks do in fantasy football season? They score fantasy points. And we have a way that we are going to compete in fantasy football this year.
Podcast fantasy football. Just you
Hot
versus me.
Mono e mono.
Yeah. It will be.
Me versus
That's
you.
right.
It is going to be the LA Chargers against the Minnesota Vikings. Same similar thing where we're going to fill out the roster, quarterback, 2 running backs, wide receivers, tight end, flex, kicker, defense, special teams. We're going to have a live count each and every week, updated each and every week, and we're going to compete.
Heck
I
yeah.
think we are going to have, or we should have, a overall season of fantasy football. I think we should do a bet, and we can have fun weekly kind of competitions in there as well. So that'll be fun. Kind of head to head things that, there's no strategy in this. Who's going to be a better output of fantasy football points, the Minnesota Vikings or the LA Chargers?
The Minnesota Vikings, of course.
Of course, you're wrong. Who? Sweet one. Okay, on that note. Anything else, Brennan?
Nothing for me.
Thanks so much for joining. We do appreciate it. If you like what you're listening to, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out. Like the video. Hit the notification bell so you never miss one of these. We do appreciate it. Brandon, send us off.
Skol Bolts, everybody.
Skol Bolts.
Okay. See ya.